On today's episode, I'm talking with Chad Hackmann with Alair Arlington. He's a straight-talking, easygoing entrepreneur originally from Missouri with a nearly 30-year career in the construction industry. Chad shares stories that include his superpower of being a good connector, why he cares so much about giving back and how it's good for business, and how affiliating with a North American home-building franchise gave him back more of his cherished family time. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Chad. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You are the first person who were persistent in emailing me and asking me, when am I going to be on your podcast? So I'm sorry it took a minute to get you on, but thank you for being here. So you are a longtime client of mine, and so I've known you for a little bit from the marketing side of things, but why don't you set the stage with what you do for a living? What is Alair Homes? And, why are you talking to me today?
The last question is the easy answer. I like to hear myself talk, so sure.
So do I. That's why I do this.
Don't we all? So the Alair Homes is a residential builder and remodeler. My office is here in the Arlington, in the D.C. metro area. We have two other offices locally. Alair is a franchise of sorts. And so they have 100 locations around the United States. I was my own builder and remodeler, my own business person for about 15 years and couldn't get out of third gear, so to speak. And so when Alair approached me and was interested in what I did, I decided to affiliate with them.
So how is it different? You're an entrepreneur back how long ago? Like it's been 20 years, right? Since you started your own brand and running your own construction company and your own team. How is it same or different being affiliated with a Northern American franchise?
I think it has some interesting pieces of it. An entrepreneur, the reason you go off and start your own business is because you can romanticize it and say lots of things, but at the end of it, you're stubborn and don't want to work for other people. You want to do it your own thing. You want to have your own vision. You want to see those things created that you can put your stamp all over. I think as part of my maturity, I realized I could only take it so far on my own. And I needed to find another way. And I was looking internally for other ways to grow and to further stabilize or better stabilize myself. And in my process of that sort of soul searching, a guy from Alair gave me a call or sent me an email, and I had a conversation with him for 6 months or so. Told him no thanks a few times, told him not right now a few times, told him I would like to talk to one more person a few times, and eventually decided to affiliate with them and move forward.
So it sounds like it was not the easiest decision to change brands and start with a different team.
And you mentioned brands. My wife, her original career was in corporate communications. She's a graphic designer by trade. She knows her way around a logo, so to speak. I don't have any knowledge of that at all. So when I was starting my business, I would say, Melissa, can you just make me a logo? And she would say, what's your content? What's your theme? What are you feeling? And I would say, why are you asking so many questions? I just need a logo. I just need to put something down. I need something to show these people. And so that was one of the many times that I learned that I have certain skills and some of them are pretty good, but there's a whole lot of stuff I don't know and I can't do and I need help with. And to get that sort of help and to be it so overt as the Alair system is, it was great for me.
Were you shopping around for other alternatives to grow? Like in that contemplation, was it you can bring in a consultant or a business coach or hire somebody else who can come inside or was it sort of?
Yes, I was looking. It was really based on, I think my standard story is I was looking at several different options. I was talking to folks. I was involved in the associations. All of that took a certain level of time commitment to take advantage of your association involvement, your networking involvement. I was trying to get software packages that could assist our clients. At the time, I felt like I was really good on the value I showed our clients. I was really good on the quality because I like to be on the job sites. I like to be involved in the process. But I was missing the administrative portion of it. I was missing the management of the structure of it. So I was looking at different software packages that helped me out and helped me put that stuff together. And I'm not a software geek, and certainly 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago I wasn't a software geek. The idea of me sitting in front of a software platform and learning it inside and out had no appeal to me whatsoever. So I knew that I was going to have to bring somebody on to help manage that piece of it, to help administer that software, to put all that stuff together. And then I thought about, wow, what's that going to cost me? How am I going to do that? And what's the software going to cost me? And then you have all these expenses, and these expenses that are going nowhere. They're going straight to your bottom line instead of allowing you to run your business. Part of the appeal of the Alair process is there's certainly some initial expenses, but it allowed me to get sort of paid as I go, or to pay them as I go, to pay them as I needed them, not to just buy a big chunk and then realize it didn't work.
So what's the downside, or is it all upswing?
The downside is that all the things that you loved about working for yourself and being your own person and setting your own destiny and taking care of your own things, now you have somebody else that is looking into you and looking at what you're doing. And they don't own any more of your business than they owned before, but you have folks that are looking at your numbers or your process or your pieces and offering you suggestions. And so that bulletproof ego that you started as a small business person takes some hits, and you have to be prepared to let them take those hits.
I mean, isn't that sort of what it's often about with entrepreneurship? It's like we're driven by ego. Like we want to make things happen and be the champion that made it happen, and sort of that beat your chest. This is mine, and look at me. And
yes, I think you very much do. You want to see that growth. But for me, it got to the point where I was seeing the growth, and I had the excitement of having my own business, and I had my excitement of having my own logo that I started with. I got the all-elusive first name only in my email address instead of the full name with periods and hyphens and everything else that folks do. So that was very exciting. But at the end of the day, I had 4 kids at home. I had a family. I had a life. I had things that I wanted to do, people I wanted to spend time with. And I needed to figure out a way to get out of my own way, to spend time with those that I wanted to, and to pursue the rest of my life.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the family, because, I know you as, you got 4 kids who are super involved in the sports scenes in different ways in different schools, and you're often taking calls with us on your way to shepherd a child one place or another.
The Uber driver, yeah.
Yeah, just an underpaid one, right?
That's right.
So where does entrepreneurship fit into family life? Is it, a lot of people start a business because they think it will give them the ultimate flexibility, or they set their own hours and they can do what they want with the family. But you're describing sort of your early entrepreneurship as taking away potentially from your family, and Alair allowed you to.
Well, I think you ratchet that back to 2006, the early 2000s, when I officially went out on my own and I held my own shingle. I had worked for multiple other people before that. I had success running other people's businesses. And then the real ego gets in the way. You see another business's P&L, and you see what percentage of that revenue you're getting, and you get to the point where you're like, I want more of that. Why can't I have more of that? I can just do this myself. I think that's a fallacy trap that we all fall into. Why am I getting paid so little for what I'm producing? And I was always on the sales side and the business development side. I was always a top producer in whatever I was selling. So I had that sort of drive to sell more, to be more a part of, to create more. And the reason I sold so much and was so successful is I was so good at creating relationships and establishing relationships. People generally liked me. They could feel confident that they could walk out the room, or I'd let them walk out of the room, and I know they would come back. Some of them would come back because they liked working with me, because I was authentic before authentic was as cool as it is now. And I was probably authentic for all the funny reasons that you say, from that I had no filter and I spoke my mind whenever I did. But in those times, I got to the point where in the early 2000s, I was working for other people. I was having success. My wife was working in her corporate communications career. And then she got a call from her parents that said her dad was in a minor car accident. We went up like most young couples do. We ran up. She's from upstate New York. We ran up to upstate New York to check it out. It turned out it wasn't a minor car accident. It was an aneurysm. He was 59 years old. He had been hanging around his dad's business for a long time, essentially running his dad's business for a long time with the hopes and the intention that he was going to take over his dad's business at some point. But his dad was a product of the Depression. His dad wasn't here's a succession plan. Let me put this on paper for you. Let me write this all down. His dad was, sure, I'll give it to you someday if you earn it. And my father-in-law, even though he had worked in it for so long, was still earning it, so to speak. And so there was nothing in writing. And so he didn't really have what we learned through this aneurysm, learned through this incident. He's still alive, thankfully. He's not the same, but he's still around, and I'm very thankful for that. But he missed out on his opportunity to take over the business. And I said to myself, why the hell am I working for other people if I'm eventually going to get worked out of the deal? You know, I'm going to work for people with the intention of moving up and getting into an ownership position eventually. But the quickest way to get to ownership is just to be the owner. So eventually you have to throw the parachute out and jump.
But how does that, and that's, I mean, that realization is fascinating. But then now that you are the owner and you have to hire and mentor and bring up through the ranks your own team, does that experience that you felt influence how you are mentoring your prodigy?
Sure, because well, first of all, when you first start your own business, you have these all wild-eyed ideas. You know, there's as much as there's 1,000 books on how to start a business, and there's 1,000 things out there, until you actually feel the sense of, and I was in a situation where because of my father-in-law's accident, because of the situation, my wife went up and lived with him for over a year, and so she left her job, lost her job, however that you frame that. And so I was the sole breadwinner. The only thing that I had was the fact that I had a bunch of equity in my Arlington house. And so we cashed out some of that equity, all of that equity, and I used that to start the business. But what I originally had was a big pile of money in my experience, a couple $100,000 that I thought I was going to be able to quickly turn into gold. I realized it's not that easy. You know, I realized that people just weren't banging down the door to work with me. You know, that all these little pieces that I ignored when I was in these other sales jobs, all these collateral pieces, all these systems, all these processes, all this stuff out there.
Insurance,
sure. Insurance, yeah. All that stuff was unavailable to me, or I didn't have ready access to it. And so I pulled myself straight up. I also saw what my father-in-law went through in this transition where he sort of lost his rights to the business and the importance of having actual succession plan, to have things in writing, to have things set up. So when I got to the point where finally I was of a size, and part of the reason, circling back to the Alair decision, I was doing just fine in my original business, in my legacy business. I just didn't have any time for myself. I would go on vacation and I'd have to sit in the hotel room and watch my kids play. I could afford the nicer location, but I couldn't afford to be out there with my family the entire time when I was on vacation because I was the only one that was doing it. And there was no way I was going to miss out on a possible renovation call. We could talk all day about the fickleness of people hiring renovations folks or hiring for new construction. But I felt like when they called, if I didn't answer, that I was going to miss out on the opportunity. So I was on it and available to it all the time.
Yeah, I can appreciate that pressure. I have memories of myself being at the beach, running inside to take client calls and or deliver or negotiate with a board or something like that. It's not fun. So I want to go back to, you said at one point, like, you know, you not sort of knowing the marketing side of things and what was all needed in that, but I think of you as a natural born marketer because you are that. You like to talk. You like to connect with people. You talked about building your network earlier, and then through Alair. So, what is this network marketing thing that you have leaned on a lot in your business?
So I was fortunate enough when I worked for all these other folks prior to affiliating with Alair and prior to starting my own business. I got to see other small businesses owners in action, and what I saw, especially in one glaring case, was somebody that I felt was a lot like me. And that wasn't necessarily a good thing. They were very easy to talk to. They put a lot of confidence through their clientele. They spoke very well. They were very knowledgeable on the services. Any problem that came up, if they could touch it, they could fix it. That's very much like I see how I am. But operationally, as they tried to grow and expand, they were a disaster. They couldn't delegate any of their authority out to anyone else. If they didn't touch it and feel it and love it, then it didn't happen. And so as soon as they started delegating the things out to other people, it wasn't successful. And so I knew that if I was going to be successful, because I saw so much of myself in that individual, if I was going to be successful in starting my own business, I was going to need to get help. I was going to need to get some sort of operational help. I thought initially I could build that operational help myself. I thought I could put those pieces and parts together on my own, but it just wasn't my skill set. There was times where I had project managers on the job, so I had enough business to hire project managers. I would get them to the point of bringing them on, but I never had the ability to really empower them to run the job for me. So they would come into the job sort of late because I didn't want them to talk to the client too early. I didn't want to mess any of that up. And then they would get on the job after it was started or going or in process, so I could go sell some more, find some more business, or talk to some more clients. And there'd be lots of calls for either from the project manager or the client saying, I thought I was going to get this. Chad, you told me this, because I didn't have those systems and processes in place to put together a plan to help them move forward and be successful. I didn't hand over a package of here's all the specifications for this project. Half of the specifications were between my ears. And so it's pretty hard to grow and be successful if you don't have those systems in place.
That's right. So how do you, you hosted an event, you co-hosted an event this past weekend. You did it also with charity in mind, and I want to come back and talk about your own sort of community giving and charity component. But like the toss of a hat, you had like all of these people signed on, these different business partners to help support this community event. So how have you built that level of, trust and all those network partners that say yes when you ask?
Because through the Alair system, I've gotten out of my own way. So the Alair system of their operational support has allowed me to sit back and look at my business and figure out what I'm best at. We've done some Kolb assessments and other sort of assessment exercises internally just for my little office, but also the reason I got in tune to it is just like any networking organization, other folks in Alair were doing it, and I thought it was a good thing to look at. It really helps cement what I already knew, where my superpower is, what butt my seat needs to be in, and what butt my seat does not need to be in. I am pretty comfortable picking up the phone and talking to folks. I'm pretty comfortable reaching out to people that I haven't met before and talking to them. I do that authenticity that I've put forth makes people feel comfortable generally, and so I can build on that network. We have, now I've been in this business building and remodeling for nearly 20 years or something like that. That's probably 17, 18 years most remodelers are in business for. Businesses tend to fail in their first year. Remodelers are a lot faster than that. Builders that are a lot faster than that. Most of them just aren't around that long. And if they are around that long, they get kind of stuck into what they do and they don't have that overall expansion to think about. So I am very comfortable reaching out to people, networking, talking to folks, building relationships. Because I've been in this business for so long now, there are subcontractors, vendors, and suppliers. I talked to St. Clair Cabinets, who was at the event today. I said, "How long have I known you?" And he's got 3 kids now, I think. And he said, "Well, before I had kids." I'm talking to, having lunch with or coffee with one of our stair guys tomorrow that I met him when his daughter was a toddler, and now she's a Division I basketball player. Those are really kind of cool stories about, because I generally care about the people that I'm around. I generally care about who they are, and I keep track of who they are. I won't remember their name for a long time. I always can't remember the name, but I'll remember where they're from or how old their kids were or if they like whatever food. I'll remember those sort of things so we can build relationships and keep it going. Because that's, my ability is to network. And, my assessment on the Colby scores, I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but it's very diplomatic. I have this ability to talk to all people on the job sites and treat them with the same amount of respect. And they feel that I treat them with the same amount of respect as anyone else would. So whether they are the carpenter, the laborer, or the business owner, I never get to report that I don't manage with a hammer. I don't manage with a fist. I manage with negotiation.
That's awesome. So I mentioned before that you do a lot for community development or, charity work or nonprofit partnership. I mean, there's all kinds of words that can be used to describe or corporate social responsibility, which is my least favorite way of describing it. Sounds like a checkbox. You have to meet something. But how does this relate to you? How do you approach it? And why is it important?
I came to D.C. in 1993, a wide-eyed Midwestern boy that was coming out here to save the world. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I thought I was going to have some sort of influence, and I thought I was going to be able to help people, and thought I was generally going to be able to move the dial. What I didn't realize is that my blood's not blue enough. I don't like suits. I like to be out on the job sites. I like to get dirty. Those are sort of my skill sets, but it hasn't changed the fact that I want to have an influence on folks. I got lucky and that I was able to get through college, that I was able to get through school. I know how tenuous it is now that I have middle schoolers and high schoolers. I know what a pain in the ass being a middle schooler or a high schooler is. It just reminds me again from my experiences. I moved nowhere exciting, just around the Midwest, but I went to 6 different schools growing up. So I was a new kid on the block several times. I know what kind of pressure it is, and that has just mounted more and more for folks. I know what it's like to not to be homeless, so to speak, but I know what it's like to get yourself in trouble and need some help getting out of it. I know what it's like when all of a sudden you can't figure out how to pay the rent one month because you are your small businessman. Or when I first got to DC, I worked for a few different outfits, and all of a sudden I lost my job and I was out of work for a while. And we are a super affluent area, but with all that affluence, all those folks that need to serve that affluence, they need help. And a lot of those folks can't afford to live around here. And we want them to live closer because we all need our house cleaned and we need that person at the restaurant to serve us like we want to be served, and those sort of things. We need that sort of help. And I certainly have a soft spot for kids. I have a soft spot for young families, and they didn't intentionally get to whatever situation they're in. But there's also the folks that are just in the middle someplace, and they just don't have enough to eat today. They just can't afford their rent today. And if we're going to build $1 million house, and Lord knows, if anybody's looked at the real estate market, even I live just on the south side of Arlington, so I always joke that I am on the poor side of town. But the average new single-family home on a lot that hasn't been renovated since the Carter administration is still almost $1 million. So there isn't really sort of entry-level housing here. So then to fix that home up, to do anything to make it livable, to make it occupiable, the client is going to spend several $100,000. And maybe, we have several projects that are well over $1 million. So if we can shave off just a little bit of that and we can help the community and give back, it's it's good business. It's good all the way around. It's good for us. It helps our employees be more connected. It helps our clientele understand that we are more connected to the community. And at the end of the day, it helps people out. Not most people, there's a little bit around here where people show that they act like they give. We want to demonstrate that we give. And we want to demonstrate that we are pulling things together. It's great to tell a vendor, supplier, hey, I want you to come in and meet a bunch of potential clients. The challenging conversation is I want you to pay me about double what it's going to cost for this event because I'm going to get half of it to charity. That's a little bit of the sales process for me.
But you're successful, it looks like. So
yeah. So I make them, we throw a good party, we have a good time. So.
I mean, what advice would you have for other business owners at different levels of their journey in terms of making that commitment? I mean, did that come about just organically for you, or was there like a point in your process as the owner to say, like, damn it, we're giving back. Like we need to start committing, or we need to start doing volunteering or supporting these organizations. How did that happen?
I think it's good business. I think there's lots of studies out there that show from a pure business perspective that some sort of giving component is good for business. I mean, Bombas socks, we buy a zillion Bombas socks because somebody got the memo that they make and give away one pair of socks for everyone they make. So it's easy to see, especially in Northern Virginia, that's an easy give to do. The other side of it, it's such a small percentage of our work, and we can make a significant impact with such a small percentage of what we bring in because the cost of construction is so high around here, and because the cost of doing things is so high around here. And it just makes common sense for everyone. And all small businesses are, once you get past whatever they're offering and whatever they're doing and whatever bubble of services they offer, they're all very similar. They all have their similar struggles. They all have their similar challenges. And so if they can figure out, and if I can help them understand the giving portion, relatively small or big or whatever, is an easy thing to start. It makes it good for everyone.
So what are you focused on right now? What's worrying you in business right now? What's exciting to you right now?
Worrying me is educating the clientele that the lowest interest rates doesn't make your affordability the highest. We have, I just read something this morning, we've had an unbelievable amount of inflation the last 10 years, just the last few years through COVID. It's been well over 10% for a period of time. Everybody looks at us on the building side of the business and says, why does my renovation cost so much? Why does my house cost so much? Because inflation sucks, and we've had a ton of it. We sort of fed the beast when we had unbelievably lower interest rates because it increased production so much that supply couldn't keep up with it, so things got more expensive, and things continue to do so. So slowing down through educating the clients that paying a little bit more. We have a funny thing where I talk to my lender and people come in obsessed with their original 2% mortgage or 3% mortgage or whatever they have. I can't refinance out of my 3% mortgage. And then they pull their credit report because it gets to be that far. And she said every one of them is carrying credit card debt. And usually to a few $1,000s of it, month after month. What's the average credit card interest rate?
I don't know, 18%?
18,
something?
19,
Yeah.
20%. So you are fooling yourself. You are talking yourself into this situation. It's like you're buying your airplane seat. Everybody brags that they got the cheapest airplane seat possible. They don't brag that they had to have a 4-hour layover. They don't brag the agony they went through to get that seat or how long they had to stay on hold or how many resellers they went through. Just buy the seat you want. Spend a few extra bucks and don't feel guilty about it if you can afford it and fly direct.
Does it surprise you that your target clientele are not uneducated folks? I mean, you're serving this Northern Virginia region, one of the most highly educated counties in the country, if not the most highly educated country. But you're having to educate people on sort of basic financial management on is that surprising to you? Or
We all live in our own bubble. We all have our own day-to-day bubble. There is, our service. It's an easier sell for us. It's an easier education process with us if we're dealing with people with bottom line responsibilities. If they are entrepreneurs of some sort, or at least or up far enough in the corporate hierarchy that they have some sort of, they're used to looking at P&Ls, they're looking at budgets, they're looking at things. But there's a whole lot of folks that are just going to a job and cashing a paycheck. Now, it may be a very, very good job, and it may be a very, very good paycheck, but they've not really thought about what influences. And our little neighborhoods are victims of or contribute to that sort of success. What's your favorite thing to do when somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, I need to paint my house"? You think, "Oh, I have a guy." Well, who is that guy? Well, he's whoever that paints houses. What's his business called? I have no idea. He's a guy. Have you checked out his license? Why would I check out his license? Have you checked out his insurance? No, I haven't checked out his insurance. Why would I check out his insurance? No, I just have a guy. And then you bring said guy in. 9 times out of 10, said guy does a fantastic job, so he gets promoted to 56 other places around the neighborhood. But when it falls apart because the guy isn't properly licensed, isn't properly insured, doesn't really pay his guys or whatever else, it comes back to haunt all of us, and it hurts. And then you're like, well, man, I really wanted this, but he wouldn't come back and fix it. I have this leaky whatever, but he wouldn't come back and fix it. I had to repaint this whatever because they did such a crappy job that they had to come back and fix it. So we perpetuate that around our own neighborhoods. I think it is interesting in the construction and remodeling of business. I think you could do, as we talk in our marketing end, how people choose people in our remodeling business. I have in my neighborhood, I've lived in the same neighborhood for 20 some years. I have people that don't call me at all, will not call me. I have people that call me first. And then I have around the corner from me, there is 4 houses right in a row. One of them I did, all big scale renovations, several $100,000. I did one of them. 2 of them happened after I did it. 1 of them happened before. All 4 of them were by different contractors. Who's marketing that? Marketing person. How did that happen?
That's next week's strategy session. So, okay, so you shared like where the challenge is. What's exciting you right now in your business? Like what is making you stick with it because things are good?
Well, I stick with it because I have no other option. I stick with it because I decided long ago to burn the parachute. You talk about, there's a book out there. I have no idea exactly what it's called, but if you burn down your options behind you, you're going to increase your options for success in front of you. I've certainly done that over the years, but that's all sort of silliness. I'm well beyond those sort of concerns, or at least I hope I'm well beyond those sort of concerns. What excites me now is that with your help, we did a video walkthrough of one of my projects after it was finished, and Elsa gave us a walk through the house. When I did their first renovation, Elsa was 3, I think, and now she's an obnoxious teenager, and she's given me the tour of the house, and she said, without blinking an eye, why did your parents do this big renovation? Why did they do this? And she said, because my mom wanted her own bathroom. So those are the great stories. I just got a referral this morning from a neighbor of one of our jobs. I have a client that I built a house for 15 years ago that she still keeps in touch with me. I mean, that is the fun part of it. There's one of my clients, when I made when I did the renovation, they had twin daughters. Their daughters were 7, 8, whatever at the time, and now I think they're either one's at UVA and one's at UNC. They're both out. They're almost out, something like that. Those are the great stories.
Have you heard this thing now, like look for glimmers? This idea of like, and I was just thinking, I know you golf a lot. when things are crappy in your business, and then you have you get that referral or you get that positive feedback loop with one of these kids coming back to you, it's enough to push you to the next phase of okay, even if things aren't great right now, there's these glimmers of awesomeness
every single time.
Well, that's great. So why don't you close this out by just share what's next? What's next for you as the entrepreneur in your business? Are you looking at exit? Are you, you said this is you have no other choice at this matter, but what's next?
Well, I think I have myself my partial exit pretty well planned out. I think that's one of the things that going through my father-in-law's situation and all that, I was big on making sure I have 2 equity partners in my existing business, that one of them very much wants to take over the business eventually, and so there's certainly a plan for that. I am expanding the Alair network around the DC metro area, and I've met some great builders. I've run across a lot of builders that have no succession plan that I've been able to give a little bit ideas. I'm a chairman of the Custom Builders Council, and we do a little bit of talk about succession planning and best practices. It's really allowed me to be incredibly open with the give back. I want to give back to everyone, business owners, my employees. We have a path where one of our project managers is going to start on the path to owning his own office now. I mean, that is thrilling for me. So the ability to grow and to help other people grow, unabashedly so. I don't feel like anything that I do is protected. I don't think anything I do is unique. I learned a long time ago that I will be more successful than the average because I'm not afraid to make the calls and ask the questions and to make the contacts. And that's still, as you mentioned, something that is tremendously hard for most. Most people have a hard time just picking up the phone. Most people are victims, and I've been victims of it occasionally, of paralysis by analysis. You think about how you're going to make the perfect call. You're thinking, I have the worst handwriting in the world. And when I send a thank you note, I don't think about the fact that I handwrote a note, nobody can read it. I think about the fact that nobody ever sends thank you notes anymore. So whatever it says, it's good enough.
That's fantastic. And I'm with you on the written thank you notes. It's, make an impression, leave them knowing that you thought about them. So I appreciate very much your candidness and sharing your experience in entrepreneurship and with Alair. And I know you and I are going to talk again, but, maybe we can do this again sooner rather than later. Been fun having you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The M Word. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Subscribe and never miss a podcast. Visit arlingtonstrategy.com for more. The M Word is an Arlington Strategy production hosted by Jennifer Mulchandani. Our theme music is by Moochie. Graphic design by Kayla Fagan and Emily Rare. Sound engineering and editing by Winston Turner.